Hi, today we're going to talk about this. AvatarController and Character. These two scripts that have classes with these names have been modified a little to allow to programmatically, meaning through code, play the animations of idle and walking when we press the WASD keys, essentially, right? And so, first of all, a caveat. If you remember the previous video, we called the parameter goes from 0 to 1 to decide how much of the idle animation and the walking animation we are playing. Just to clarify, is this one, right? Before was called speed, now I change it into move speed, because maybe we want to one day distinguish it between another kind of speed, like, I don't know, turn speed. Maybe we are not going to use it for now, because we don't make this distinction. We don't play a special animation when we turn left or right. But if one day we want to do that, then we would have to add, a new parameter, like here. See, you can add parameters of different kinds, and then we can call it turn speed, so it will be different. But other than that, it works exactly the same way. Again, there are still a choice between the idle speed animation and the walk forward animation. If it is, this value is 0, it plays 100% the idle animation. If it is 1, plays 100% the walking animation. Anything in between, it merges them. For instance, 1/3 of the way, it plays 2/3 the weight is still on the idle animation, and 1/3 is on the walking animation. If it is at 2/3, so it's closer to the walking animation, then it is mostly walking animation, just only a little bit of idle. And if it is 1, completely does the walking animation. So let me show it to you. Before, she was basically always in like this, even when she was moving. And now when we press W key, she starts walking, right? And you can actually see that this moves progressively, right? In fact, let me just tap W, right? A little bit. See, it just moves a little. If I do it a little more, it gets about halfway. And if I just hold it more, it goes all the way, right? Notice that when I stop, she kind of flips back into this reverse V position, right? So she goes from 0 to 1 smoothly, and from 1 to 0 all of a sudden, right? I haven't decided whether to add the smooth movement also from 1 to 0. For now, I want to leave it to you as an exercise. As long as you understand how this works, it shouldn't be too difficult to add it. But based on requests, we may add it. So what does decide the speed with which it goes from 0 to 1? Well, there is this parameter called move acceleration. Now it's 10, right? We can put it 20, so now it's faster. The way it goes from 0 to 1 is faster, double than before. So let me show you. Now I just barely touch it. See, already goes to halfway, even though it is just touched. And she kind of gets walking faster, right? So just to give you an example, instead of 20, let's put 2, that is 10 times less. So now if I press W, let's see what happens. Okay, and now, see, it takes her a while to get from 0 to 1, right? It really climbs it. So 2 is decidedly too much, maybe 10, 20 is a better value. Is up to you to decide, right? But this is how it works. And also notice that when we go back here, this is a trick I teach you. So if you click on Ellen, that is, the one with the animator, here you see that the bars, they show the completion of the animation. Now these animations are cyclical, so they keep doing back and forth. Let me show you. Initially, from the start, she plays the stand-up animation. See, this one, completely. And then it moves to this one and it keeps repeating because the other animation is cyclical, right? It's like she's breathing. And the other animation, again, is merged with the walking animation when I press one of the WASD keys, whether we go diagonally or any direction. And then of course I can hold W, but I move the mouse, and she sort of, in a more refined way, she changes the angle of movement. Because with the WASD keys you only have 45 degrees you know, granularity. But with the mouse, you have all of them. All the 360 degrees are available to you, both up and down and left and right. Okay. As you can see, probably you feel that the way the mouse, the camera works is maybe the opposite of what you would like. We may have a video about tweaking parameters to be probably a little more like you are used to. So for instance, the follow camera, what we would do, we would invert the Y and maybe the X, not invert it, and it would work maybe more intuitively. Or maybe you want to change only one of the two but keep the other one the same. There are other nice touches that we can add. For instance, there is here in aim, we can add some noise, right? This is all fun. We can have separate art videos on it, like just little details. So the noise is nice because when you're not touching the camera and she's resting, like playing the idle animation, the cameras, you can make it move a little bit. So it simulates a guy being behind her and, you know, breathing and carrying the camera as well. These are all nice touches. For instance, if you had a system that keeps track of how much she's exhausted, you could even consider making the shake more or less, just to give at a nearly subconscious level the information to the player that she is tired or getting tired, right? That would be a nice touch. Again, we will go with specialized videos on these small details, including maybe fixing her head finally. I see that your guys thinking, when do we fix the head? We're gonna do it soon. But for now, hopefully this was good. So let's just give a look to the code. As you can see, we have moved these 4 parameters. I kept them commented out, but I'm gonna remove them before, you know, before I push everything. But fundamentally, these 4 have been moved from AvatarController to the character, right? They are here, still in red. Also, the velocity has been moved here, so it's in yellow, and is in yellow because I have also highlighted it here. And okay, I am searching that. So velocity is no longer just velocity, it's character velocity, because it's no longer part of the avatar controller. See, it is part of the character. And how does it work? Well, what I invite you to do is look at the update function, essentially, right, and follow it. And all it does really is calling this function that detects whether a length is grounded or not. After you call it, this value contains, you know, whether she is grounded or not, true or false. And these are the ground info, meaning what she's touching, stuff like that. We are not really using it, but you know, it could be useful depending. This is the function that, based on the fact that whether she's grounded or not, makes the ball that is on top of her head green or blue. And then there are all sorts of conditions. If she's grounded and she's jumping, then do this. It's a bit easy to follow. And then we say, okay, if she's grounded, do this, otherwise do that. And I think you should really give a look to this, maybe experiment a bit with the parameters, commenting out some parts and press play, wait recompiles and press play, just to get the sense of what she's doing. But fundamentally, see, we are applying gravity, right? Why we are applying gravity? Well, because if she's not grounded, that's the else branch, right? We want her to fall. So that's why we apply transform up vertical speed, right? Basically, we influence the y component of our velocity, because velocity has 3 components, right? Normally, you think of it as just being x and z on the ground, right? But when you jump, obviously, there is also the vertical component. They are all clustered, right? Because it's a vector tree, so they are all together, right? And then again, if she's grounded and the movement input is barely 0 or nearly 0, right? That's what it means. Then reset this. Notice that I kept this commented out because if she's sprinting, obviously, basically if you're pressing the shift key, right, to make her sprint, it doesn't matter. if you are not pressing the WASD keys, even if you press shift, nothing happens, right? So we set it to false. But again, right now we don't have even this parameter, but I left it there because logically I think it makes you understand what we are at. And then the move speed, that's that thing that goes from 0 to 1, that's where we set it. So that's the value, right? This numerator divided denominator. So the denominator is the maximum speed and the numerator is the actual speed, right? So let's say the maximum speed is what it was, 3. Maximum speed 3. Okay, so if the numerator is between 0 and 3, it divided 3 becomes between 0 and 1, all right? And that's how move speed is set, so that the animator knows, and based on that decides which frame animation to play. And then there is this rotate towards, that is the function that adjusts the direction of the direction that Allen is moving towards, based also on the direction that the camera is looking at, right? So moving the mouse left or right makes a rotate when you press W, right? Or any other key for that matters. And then move, that is part of mover, character mover, is part of the Scivolo character controller. You have to pass the velocity per frame, so we multiply by time.data time. And then we pass that move context that we established before, right? What she's touching, right? And this function essentially calculates how she moves, right? So whether she goes on those sand dunes, on steps, or on inclines, it takes care of everything. Then here is a little bit of a hack for now, but I set the current maximum speed to 3. Again, it's a hack because after, when we introduce sprinting, the maximum move speed may not be 3, may become what? Max walk speed is 3, there may be a sprint speed that is maybe 6, okay? So for now we don't have sprinting, so I just set it to 3 and that's it. And then, you know, praise the animation. By the way, if you have ever wondered how does it work that Allen can stick to moving platforms and rotate with them, well, it's pretty easy. This is the code that does it, right? Again, this is part of Scivolo. We borrowed it from the demo. The moving platforms, the code that makes the moving platform Allen stick to the moving platforms, no, it's part of the core Scivolo code. It's interesting if you want to give it a look. It's mostly physics basically, and calculations with trigonometry and things. Not super fun maybe. This is how you read the input and how you adjust it based on the direction of the camera. It's about projecting the camera on the surface of the XZ plane and do all this beautiful work with trigonometry. It's interesting, but you know, you can try to change it to understand how it works. Essentially is about seeing if the camera is like this, you want to project like her shadow on the ground and seeing which direction is compared to her. That's what is done, and then sort of adjust her position based on that. Then detect ground and check if grounded. This is pretty straightforward. Set ground indicator color is the one we already saw, the ball on her head. Rotate towards, we talked about before. Again, we could do them also differently, right? What these functions are doing is essentially trying to provide a very common behavior across many games that use third-person cameras, okay? This is by no means the way of doing it, but it is certainly a way that is not too surprising, right? The way Allen works, hopefully, is pretty plain and in double quotes intuitive. Of course, any game has its own idiosyncrasies and you may want to do other things, and that's good because it's not hard-coded. As you can see, everything is done by a code, so you can change it. And you know, give a look to all this code. This is the one that gets the input from the input controller in the game manager, right? This is what the input controller reads. when you read the WAS keys, and this is how we remap them. The X and the Y become the X and the Z in 3D, right? This is a vector 2, and of course we interpret the vertical movement, the W and S keys, as moving on the Z axis, right? Because the Z axis in Unity is always the forward axis. The Y, we leave it at 0. Why? Well, because that depends whether you press spacebar to jump, right? And then, do you remember that code I said we apply gravity so she falls back, right? That's exactly what this is about. And that's it. I think pretty much this is all I wanted to talk to you about. As you can see, everything has already basically been set up. We did all the work before. Now it was just a matter of wiring up things a little bit and to play the animation, right? And we are showing it all at once, all together. It's good sometimes to get just the entire source code of a couple of files like AvatarController and Character, so we can really see what it is, right? So we are also in sync, you and me. We know what my code is, what is exactly like your code. And I hope you found this interesting, and for today, that's it. Thank you.